Lease-ups require a specific and specialized skill set and methodology to move markets. You can't rely on generic leasing teams and siloed marketing partners, especially in what's become the toughest absorption environment in the last decade, if not longer. With rent growth flat, vacancy rates at record highs, and renter urgency at historic lows, operators can't afford to get lease-ups wrong. On this episode of Real Wins, I'm joined by Charlesgate Managing Partner Mike DeMilla as we discuss lessons learned from 200 plus lease-ups in tough markets. We talk about market, aligning with brand, aligning with leasing, and operations from day one. We break down what it really takes to outperform in 2025 and beyond. And we're back with another episode of Real Wins, but this time I'm back. I feel like I've taken a hiatus and I've been behind the scenes while you and Chris have filmed, and now it's Mike and Tori again. So it's good to be back.
Welcome back, Tori. Excited for the conversation here today, and looking forward to having the conversation with you. This is great.
Yeah, I think it's always a good time. But before we dig in, I just have to, catch up with you real quick. With 4th of July is around the corner. Do you have any fun plans?
My plans, as always, are to try to get as much time on water as I possibly can. So that's my plan. Whether or not my kids will allow that to happen is always at issue. Although they love it on the water as well, which is great. So the plan is to get on the water, do some sailing, and spend some family time. All the good
That's
stuff.
awesome.
Yeah. How about
Yeah,
you?
that sounds like a great 4th. Same here. We're aligned. I'll be out on the water, on a flotation device, not a boat, but out on the bay on a
Are
paddleboard
you
or
still
an inner
working on your
tube.
swimming lessons? Is that what you're talking about here?
Yes, and I actually got stung by a jellyfish this weekend.
Oh no.
So the jellies are in the bay. I don't know if it's safe for swimming, but we have a little creek off the bay that they haven't gone into yet. So we'll see. But yeah, we have
Oh
some
man.
friends coming up for the 4th. The 4th of July in Annapolis, probably a lot like Boston. It's very patriotic because of all the rich history out here with the founding fathers. So people go crazy here with like flag waving and hot dog eating, and I'm
Yeah.
very, very
Oh,
excited.
wow. Hot dog eating too, huh? Amazing. I know. I love Annapolis. Obviously, it's near and dear to my heart. Such a great city, such a beautiful bay on the Chesapeake, and such fantastic history there too. So that's awesome. So I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Just stay away from the jellyfish. Those are not fun to
Yeah,
get stung by. So be careful out there.
yeah, it was tough. It was a tough Saturday for me. But we have a really awesome conversation today because this is one that I think is long overdue. We are breaking down lessons learned from over 200 lease ups in tough markets. I think the timing couldn't be better. Obviously, 2025 has been a tough market for pretty much everyone. I don't know anyone who's having the best year of their life right now. And there's so much excellence that can come from like valid proof points from people who've been through it. And Charles Gates about 25, approaching 25 years old. So you've had your
God,
fair share
really?
of tough markets already.
Oh my God. Yeah. No. Yeah. Seriously. No kidding. Yeah, we've been through a few cycles, put it that way. So we've had the ups and downs. It's this one's really fascinating though, in the sense that there's still a natural undersupply of housing across the U.S. and certainly in major metro markets. That said, a lot of this there has been a short-term surge in supply in many markets that has created this slowdown in leasing and on top of that you've got some demand slowdown from all the uncertainty that's just in the macro environment right now, so it's really creating a really unique environment to lease up and lease new buildings. Everyone, is frozen, really. I think everyone's frozen from making big decisions in their lives in a lot of ways with everything going on. So, all the more importance to really be doing really effective marketing and leasing to make sure you're driving revenue in the property and maintaining high occupancy levels, appropriate rent levels, and all that stuff. But yeah, it's a really fascinating market in that regard. But I was talking to someone else the other day, and I was just really thinking about how this is so different from something like 2000 after 2008 financial meltdown, 2009, 10. It's just it's not nearly that same type of thing, but in many ways, it's got its own real unique set of difficulties in many metros and here in kind of the New England, Boston area as well.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things about tough markets, especially where we just started quarter three today, People are at the halfway point of the year, and it's summer. So it's supposed to be the best time of year for everyone right now. And you've got a lot of developers out there wondering, why are so many lease ups underperforming, and what's the root issue here? And I know you just gave sort of like a summary, but break it down for me. What's really at play right now as we approach the second half of 2025?
Yeah, I mean, so I just mentioned the macro factors, which with just so much uncertainty and limited demand and in some pockets of short-term oversupply. But really, the fundamental issue is good or bad market in multifamily is that we're marketing and leasing as if it were 10 or 15 years ago. We're so
Yeah.
behind the latest marketing techniques. We're so behind the latest sales process techniques and training. We still have our most junior entry level people doing leasing in most circumstances. There's just so much broken about how we're operating on the revenue side of
Hmm.
multifamily that it causes much slower lease ups, much less opportunity to capture net effective rent at the appropriate levels than otherwise could be attained, simply because the way we're doing things in this industry is really, really dated.
Yeah. No, I feel that. And I think this isn't the time of year slash time of life to be sending in your B team to lease up your building. And a lot of the things you stand for is having seasoned sales professionals, having experts, people who love this industry, who know this industry, know how to adapt quickly, who understand the cohesion between marketing and leasing. It's still possible to succeed. In fact, we've already had some successes this year with some buildings that have opened. And what you're saying is you have to grow out of these bad habits and challenge convention. And how do we solve for that Charles Gate wise, step by step? Like, what's your approach to really combating this issue of outdated marketing and multifamily?
Well, it's really holistic, right? I mean, the realistic root of this is like you've got to think about, hey, you're opening a 100, 200, 300 unit building, and if you're not thinking early about how you're going to drive the revenue process, which means how you're going to market and lease, you're way
Hmm.
behind. I mean, if you're not starting with that, I think you're doing it wrong. If you're not starting with marketing and leasing, then you're doing it wrong. That's just the name of the game right now. And so, like any other business, any other industry in America, that's where you start. That is the most important factor. If you can't lease up the building, if you can't attract the tenants, the residents that are most attracted to the building, if you can't and then deliver a great experience to them, what are we doing this for? It's ridiculous that you would think about it any other way. So that said,
Yeah.
there are multiple components to how to think about a go-to-market plan for multifamily, right? There are, I would say, the three major components. One is build a brand that matters. The second
Hmm.
is really creating an effective demand engine, and a demand engine that works in 2025, not one that worked in 2010, which
Yeah.
most people are doing. And then really training up and equipping and enabling your leasing team to attract, nurture, and convert residents at scale. And really, that's the big picture. That's it. There's many ways to do each of those steps, and it certainly depends on your target market. But build a
Right.
brand that matters, create a demand engine that works in 2025, and enable your leasing team to nurture and close leads at a far higher rate. And that's the simplest, biggest picture way to do it. And if you're not thinking about all three of those things, you're doing it wrong.
Absolutely. And if you're a listener and you're thinking about your project right now, hearing that, and one of those three or two of those three, or heck, even three of those three are completely shut off or disjointed, that right there is a huge issue. And now is the perfect time. You're still in the middle of summer to try and turn things around, which brings me to my next question, Mike, is, let's get tactical. What are small decisions that you've seen separate good, the accepted, the usual, the standard status quo from the great and the least up with a waiting list? What does that look like for you?
I mean, the first one is always starting early, prepping and getting started early. I alluded to that earlier, but thinking about who your target audience is, like as you're designing the building, as you're kind of coalescing a brand and an experience around that, really be thinking about who your target audience is. And that's sort of starts and should start way, way early. But fundamentally, what you need to be really coring into is creating demand at scale. And so that means not just picking a few tactics out of a hat, not just saying, I'm going to put this on an ILS or otherwise. I'm not just going to run some pay-per-click ads that are sort of random when we hope the algorithm feeds us good leads. It's not just like, oh, we're going to, test and sample this, maybe do some geo-targeting ads with terrible creative, right? All these things,
Yeah.
they're just tactics. What you really need is a cohesive, comprehensive strategy from which you have a hypothesis, from which you create from your hypothesis about who your audience is and should be based on your location, brand, lifestyle, experience. All those things should play into that. You create a strategy, and then from your strategy, based on who your audience is, how you're going to market, what your sort of rents are, what the psychographics of your expected residents are. Then you say, okay, what are the appropriate tactics that we should use in this case that are going to maximize demand at scale for the least amount of money per lead, per lease possible, right? And so there's literally hundreds of tactics. Again, most firms in the industry are relying on tactics that are either hit the easy button, like put in the ILS,
Yeah.
or tactics that are 20 years out of date across the spectrum. So you're running just generic
Right.
pay-per-click ads. You're running boring, shitty creative on your Meta, your Instagram ads, instead of doing stuff that like actually will open the door for people today to stop the scroll and get them to be like, oh shit, I gotta check out that property. But we're just so behind on how we're doing those things, and we're relying, again, big part of it is we're either stretching our teams too thin, or like our marketing teams are working at a property manager that are covering 300 buildings, or
Right.
you've got just the juniorest level talent on board to do that.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Transforming Cities. Brought to you by Authentic, delivering premier multifamily brand experiences and smart digital marketing. Authentic's proven approach accelerates leasing velocity, boosts rental rates, and increases long-term value. You can find out more at AuthenticFF.com. And by Charles Gate, the multifamily investor's secret weapon to help underwrite, go to market, and operate projects that generate market-beating returns. With an adaptive staffing model and on-demand leasing teams, Charles Gate empowers a better resident experience at an efficient cost structure for today's owners. Visit charlesgate.com for more.
Something that people don't realize is there's a huge opportunity in multifamily to be the one that breaks the mold, be the one that moves different in the market, that doesn't just make a property Instagram and let your leasing office own it and, go with a premium package on ILS for 8 months because that's what we've always done. When you move differently with market strategy, renters notice and it feels elevated and it feels curated and cultivated and strategic. And people are attracted to that, especially if you're in a luxury product. And, how you come to market, you can't always, outspend your competition, but you can outbrand them. You can snub their attention and you don't always have to do things the old way, the expensive way a lot of the time. That is, like you said, tactics to do that. I think that's an excellent point. And, you're fighting the good fight, leading
Yeah,
that
no, look,
charge.
I mean, it's easy to fall into this trap though, because like, for example, I'll give you a specific example of like, everyone, every sort of owner developer is always like, what are we doing on social media? Like social media is the end all be all. And okay, so then you have this whole bunch of properties that have social media sites that have like, 50 followers on them that are posting generic, ivory tower social media posts, one, boring one after the next one, month after month after
Hmm.
month, that really does nothing whatsoever. So
Right.
instead of actually taking on someone who understands or thinking about, hey, hire bring a team in that knows what they're doing and say, okay, we're not just going to just pretend and post this because that's the only thing you see as your organic page because it's the first thing that comes to, that you can pop up and see. Most of the best marketing is not going to be sort of seen by people who aren't in the target audience. And right, so you're saying, okay, how can we develop and design creative that really matters, creative that
Hmm.
really, impacts and stops the scroll and demands, and then use effective advertising, whether it's paid campaigns or otherwise, to specifically target the people or to specifically attract the people with great creative. Creative is more important than ever. Frankly, that's the key thing now because the way the algorithms work on social media, the targeting is you're far less able to target specific profiles so you have to rely on the creative to actually, get people in the door and become a lead. And so if you don't have someone that can really understand copywriting and creative and really impactful language and video that is pulling and attracting people in, it's just, you're
Mm-hmm.
just sort of wasting your money just by doing a couple of posts a week that are a generic picture of a coffee shop nearby, if you're lucky, or some stock imagery in the worst case scenario.
Yep. Luxury apartments, modern way of living. I can see it now. And they're wondering where all their leads are. But
Exactly.
those are
Exactly. They're they're
really
they're
good
they're they're
points.
co- they're shopping all of your competitors at the same time on an ILS and just only selecting based on price instead of actually this ability to attract your target audience at scale, um, for something that really resonates with them in a powerful way. So you're attracting better leads that are more likely to convert and that are more likely to convert at a faster rate, that are more likely to convert at a lower cost per conversion.
Absolutely. Now, when we're wrapping up this conversation, thinking about like takeaways and next steps for our listeners, it's like I said, halfway through the year, it's a tough market. We know it's a tough market. What are like a couple, 3 to 5 takeaways you can give them from your experience in over 200 lease-ups that they can implement now to try to get to the bottom of what's going on in their lease-up?
I think it really comes down to, you have to understand what's happening, right? So you need to do a deep dive into what is going on, have an audit done. I know like Chris over at Authentic will certainly be happy to offer an audit, that they're offering a really super comprehensive deep dive into like what is going on right now. How is the marketing working? How is it resonating? What does the competition look like in the market? And frankly, the leasing process as well. How are the leasing people on site doing in terms of effectively interfacing with the marketing and converting leads? And so really understanding what's happening, because every property is unique in the sense that there are some pieces of each one that are, not working well or not working at all. And it's hard to tell what that is, right? So,
Yeah,
to go back to an early quick thing, it's just, marketing is very, very complicated in 2025 in so many ways. There are so many different strings to pull. There are so many different things to know. If you're relying on a team that doesn't have really deep expertise and experience, it's just a recipe at best case scenario, you're spending too much money, you're investing too much money. Worst case scenario, you
right.
stalled out, stuck, and have a dramatically lower than where you expected to be occupancy. So starting with really understanding, getting, really deep dive, understanding what the problems actually are.
Absolutely. I think another topic that you touched on lightly on this conversation that I think is important as well is this cohesion between the marketing and the leasing team and how that can come to the light when you do have a secret shop or a property audit. Because in my experience, and this could just be my projects that I've been on, is when things aren't going well and it's a tough market, linking back to like COVID times for me, it's like when the developer is asking what's going on, it's sometimes a finger pointing match and people aren't talking. The marketing team has no idea what is struggling in the leasing office, and the leasing office has no idea how marketing is trying to support them. And that disconnect alone causes so much conflict and so much tension. And quite frankly, it wastes so much time and money because people then get frustrated and they leave and you backfill those roles, or they can't figure out what's going on because everyone's just, like I said, finger pointing. And I feel like that's a huge issue that's come to light in some of these audits so far, is this disconnect between marketing and leasing with this overall ecosystem of how things are working together. So I just, from your experience in over 200 lease-ups, like I'd love to hear more about that dynamic as well.
Totally. I think I've spoken about this a lot, and this important factor of the alignment between marketing and leasing. And so often we see a disconnect, right, in the market, where there's just a disconnect between whatever's going on in marketing, how the brand was created, frankly, even between sort of, in some cases, branding and website companies, and who's effectively doing the demand creation. If it's maybe
Mm-hmm.
a management company or staffing that's separated from the branding agency in some cases, but then leasing, there's a disconnect too. And so all these disconnects all over the place are causing really kind of chaos. The messaging is mixed. How the sort of the communications, the ads that go out are just, not containing sort of the talking points that the
Yeah.
leasing person understands how to speak to and convert. You've got ads that go sort of to nowhere, but a generic homepage in many cases. So all these things are just disconnected in so many ways. And again, all it does is just increase your budget, add to your costs, and decelerate your
Yeah.
lease up. And so it's kind of simple stuff at the end of the day. It's kind of obvious stuff at the end of the day. The problem is there's a fundamentally dramatic underinvestment in talent and expertise in terms of marketing and leasing in this business. And so everything is, for years and years and years, has been like, how can we shave the most cost out of value engineer the construction and then value engineer the operations to extract all the costs we can. But really, what we're talking about here is investing the appropriate amount to drive revenue, right? And so again, it's just one of those things that mind boggles me sometimes when every other industry and every other business in America really understands, like, hey, we have to invest in marketing and sales to grow revenue, to get and sort of beat the market, right? Why we just settle in this industry to say, hey, this is what the market's going to give us, this is what the comps are, and I don't know, it's going to happen magically if you build a they will come style. It just doesn't work that way. And even in the best of times, it's just oftentimes a major miss. And there's money left on the table, there's NOI left on the table, there's massive amounts of capitalized value left on the table, and for those developers looking, whoever investors who are looking, they're leaving a lot of carry on the table too with their promote, who they're not hitting hurdles, because just again, this is as key of a part, and frankly more important of a part of successful projects, as much as construction, as much as sort of ongoing operations, is this marketing and leasing effort.
Absolutely. My dad always said growing up, quality doesn't cost ever. Quality pays.
Yeah,
And
that's a
I
big
think
quote.
of
That's a big
that
quote.
all the time. I mean, everything. Like, he won't let me buy a tool at Home Depot unless it's like a quality tool, because he's like, you're just going to replace it. Just for his example, I heard he visited this weekend. I heard it like 100 times. And he works with developers. He's a civil engineer. And,
Nice.
when you think about from a marketing standpoint, from a property standpoint, like, you're not putting composite countertops in and the lowest quality drywall and mortar in your building. So why are you spending like the least amount of money you can on the cost to actually tell the world about it and promote it? Like, you made all these thoughtful design choices. It boggles my mind too, Mike. But we do have some really awesome clients that believe in that and they leased their building up so far in 2025 in really tough market. And the bottom line is they did it without offering a single concession because they started early.
Yeah, there's so many examples we could give you of many, many projects. And one of the lessons, absolutely, of doing this the right way, you're absolutely going to get an immediate payback, either by reduced concessions, faster absorption, higher than market rents. And it's one of those things that instantly pays back, and we've seen, ROI on marketing and leasing spend on the order of 10x. It's literally the best investment you can make in a project in almost any regard, how much of a payback and actually return on investment it actually is if done right. The question is, I get it, why everyone's gun shy, because there's just so many stories of negative and poor performance, and for all the reasons you and I just talked about, that it's hard to understand like who can actually deliver great results. But if you do the things right, if you start early, if you're focusing on those three core concepts that we talked about, it really pays back. It pays back immediately and quickly, and you can overcome tough markets, and you can overperform in better markets. You're going to beat the competition in any case. And so it's very, I'm going to stay on this soapbox for, as long as it takes, but I'm going to get people to understand one of the best investments that they can make is to really make sure they're investing appropriately in the appropriate talent, experience, and monetary investment in an effective marketing and lease-up team that is tightly aligned across the board.
Absolutely. It's success insurance is what I call it. But Speaking of
I like it. You're
investment,
coming in hot with a lot of good lines today. Success insurance, quality pays. I'm going to steal a lot of these, Tori. I'll credit your
oh,
dad. I'll credit you. I'm going to steal them though.
yeah, my dad's freshly retired. If anybody wants to just get some dadisms from a life in civil engineering, he's got
Nice.
plenty.
Let's get
And
him
I'm
on. Let's get
spewing
him on
them
the
all
podcast.
today.
Let's get him on the
You know,
podcast next time.
he is a treasure trove of what it was like to build up a city. We're from Toledo, of um, a city that's being revitalized, and working against, and working with planning commission and city leaders and a lot of other hurdles developers have to face. That's, neither here nor there, but that's another time for another day. Speaking of investment, you mentioned there's a marketing and leasing audit going on. From my understanding, right now it's 50% off through the end of the month, which, if you think about it, is $5,000, which is a fraction of what most people spend for a full month on an ILS, for marketing and leasing experts to leave no stone unturned and find those disconnects and really instill those lessons from our 200 plus lease-ups into your property to turn things around. So anything you want to add about how people can get an audit if they want one?
I think you did. I think you did a
Just
great job. As I said, if you don't know, or you're not clear, or you're not sure on what's happening, really, just getting a deep dive into how your marketing is working, how your leasing team is working, what's going on in the competition in the market, how you can improve results rapidly, instantly and rapidly, is really the only way to do it. Otherwise, just guessing. You're just throwing stuff at the wall, see if it sticks, and you're wasting money. But hey, whatever you choose to do, I suppose, if you're if you're in those if you're in that boat.
Absolutely. No, I think back to my days as a regional marketing manager and like what I would have done to have a supplier partner come in and help me as a one-person marketer, just like fix everything and find the solve for these issues so that I can make myself look good and my boss look good and our buildings are leased up. I think it's a really awesome offer, a great value. It's over a 20 plus page PDF, and they, are doing everything. They're secret shopping your property. They are speaking with your leasing teams. They're looking into your ad spend, how your ads are converting. They leave literally no stone unturned. I already said that. So if you want to claim your marketing audit and leasing audit, go to authenticff.com/marketing leasing audit to learn more. We'll have the link in the comments, and we can't wait to help you out.
You went full on YouTube right there. That's awesome. Subscribe, comment, share a link below.
Yeah.
That's great.
No, yes, subscribe,
Awesome.
comment as well. But Mike,
That's
it's been
great.
a real pleasure learning and from your wisdom of over 200 plus lease-ups, many more to come, many more on the docket. So I just thank you for this conversation, and I hope our listeners are able to feel inspired as they listen to this to take back the rest of 2025.
Awesome. Talk to you soon, Tori.
Bye, Mike.